safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
What a beautiful silhouette on this lovely morning of World Dawn Chorus Day. And we are sitting listening to some of those sounds at the moment, and this is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Safari Live. It really is a beautiful morning already. Not quite sunrise just yet, but some beautiful colors in the sky already, and that beautiful silhouette of these marula trees and the clearings not far from camp. And it is World Dawn Chorus Day, and we are trying to listen to some of those sounds at the moment. You can hear a Cape turtle dove in the distance. There's some francolins calling. So hopefully we get to hear some more sounds a little bit later. So my name is Byron, and on Fergus with me this morning.
No one's on Fergus this morning.
Fergus is on camera this morning. And then I'm sure some of you would have seen James already out in the vehicle, and then Tayla will be walking a little bit later, and the ladies in the final control. And a very good morning to all of you back home, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget, everyone, we are completely live and interactive, so send us your questions. Hashtag Safari Live is how you do so, and we'll gladly answer them. And there's been a lot of excitement during the course of the evening. So I did hear leopards calling last night, and then from our dam cam, we had the update that there were possibly leopards fighting, and it was definitely leopards fighting. We could hear the sounds. I double checked, it definitely was, and James is in that area now to try and find out what has happened to young Hosana, who had a kill. And we mentioned it yesterday. There were a lot of questions. What happens if Tingana, the big male leopard, comes into this area? What would happen? And I thought there's a good chance that he may chase him off the kill just so that he can get some of it and just teach him a bit of a lesson, but I don't think it'd really harm him. So not too sure what has happened, but James is investigating there, and hopefully we'll have an update about that shortly. I also hope it was Tingana. I mean, I don't know if there was another leopard that possibly crossed into that area. So that is another story, or another side of the story that we need to take into consideration. So we'll see what happened. I'm not sure what I'm going to look for yet. I didn't hear any lions last night. I didn't hear any hyena. I just heard the leopard roaring, or that rasping sound of a leopard a few times early this morning. So, but we'll see. Maybe we have some luck with some elephant a little bit later. That would be wonderful. And we'll see what else we find. I think it really does look like it's going to be a beautiful day. So we'll see what it has in store for us. All right. Now, as I mentioned, James is on the other vehicle. Some of you may have seen him already. He'd like to say good morning. Let's see if he's found out anything about those leopards.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? This is the proper welcome. Of course, I did the pre-show to the show, but now I'm doing the real show. My name is James Henry, and on camera today we have got Craig the Batman. Wonderful, there he is. That is his thumb. That strap there, of course, was not for Craig's thumb, but for me. Good. Now, hashtag Safari Live, of course, is how you get hold of us. You can ask us about the leopards, perhaps, that we heard last night, or perhaps you can ask us about the Dawn Chorus, which is quite subdued today. let's see what we can hear. It is World Dawn Chorus Day, as Byron mentioned. Right, I'll just take you through what I can hear. Franklins, they're the sort of loud brass section of this morning's Dawn Chorus. We have the woodwinds being played by the grey-headed bushshrikes over there. The strings, as always, provided by the Cape Turtle doves, infusing the entire area. Sparrows. Bit of high-pitched percussion. And the orioles. Also, a section of the woodwinds. Very nice. I think that is the orchestra for this morning. It's not a very big orchestra. It's not a sort of size orchestra you would expect to find in a, I don't know, shall we say, a very large Richard Strauss production. Much more a Baroque orchestra today. Wouldn't you say, Craig?
Yeah, possibly along those lines.
Hello, Grand Lover. That's quite a name to give oneself. Well, well done for you. You say, is it darker this morning? Well, yes, it would have been 30 seconds darker than it was yesterday morning. That's how much the sunrise is shifting on a daily basis. There's a little bit of mist in the air, I suppose, so it would have made it slightly darker perhaps than yesterday. I think it looks darker here because we're actually on a west-facing slope, which means that, and we're not very high up, which means that it might feel slightly darker because we're not facing the sun like Byron was when he started. Okay, I think let's carry on. We're going to drive, well, let's just quickly look over there, if you don't mind, Craig. That is where the dam is. Hosana's kill was just the other side. You can see that light shining there. Just the other side of that. We checked that earlier this morning during the course of the pre-show to the show. And there wasn't anything there. I'm going to sort of circle back around that area, but first we're going to go off in front of us here past the Galago Pan, which is the last place I saw Shongile, for example, and I think that these leopards may have been spending some time in those drainage lines to the north of the Galago Pan. There's very little activity from a vehicle point of view in there, so we'll head in there and see if we can't see what's going on that side. We'll circle back and see what's going on here as well. Alright, Byron apparently is searching for something called other animals, and he'd like to tell you about that immediately.
Right, sorry James, I didn't hear what you said there, but I am indeed searching, and I'm surprised you haven't had any luck with leopards yet. I wonder if they aren't around there, just in the drainage line perhaps, but we will have a good look around and see if we can find those animals. Now, while I'm driving, I'm also checking the roads very carefully for any tracks or signs of animals. Not just cats, but anything for that matter. I did see, can you believe it? I did see civet tracks this morning, and I think it might have been the same civet that we saw the other night. And the only reason I say that is because the tracks were in the same area. It was literally about 30 meters from where we saw him the other day and the other evening. So I think it's possibly the same civet. Fresh tracks clearly from last night. And again, I say last night because they are mostly nocturnal, we know that. And you could see very clear civet tracks. If I see some more clear ones, I will definitely try and show them to you. Very round, clear pads that you can see on a civet track. But I am looking, like I say, for just about anything, whatever we can find. I can see tracks of where I think James went for a run yesterday along here. I think this is the section where they found the buffalo, yes. There are hyena tracks from last night, and lovely morning mist at the moment, just off to our left. Always such a beautiful view from here. This is probably my favorite spot on the sunrise safari, morning safari, just because the views from here are just exquisite. You can see the mist settling down in the valley over there below us. And again, that's because all the cold air is obviously heavier and it traps a lot of that mist, and that's what causes that mist to settle down in the valley below us. Very beautiful. My favorite time of the day, I think, are these autumn and winter mornings. Very beautiful. Again, listening to the dawn chorus. Just a lot of doves at the moment. Oh! I just caught a glimpse of what looked like a little bushveld gerbil just running across the road. Very quick, and I don't think we'll see it again. It ran into some long grass. Just a quick little glimpse of it. Bushveld gerbil is a small rodent we get around here. We do see them from time to time. A quick little glimpse of one running across the road. That's all that was. Can hear Cape turtle doves, white-browed robin chats. I heard some ground hornbills earlier this morning too. Possibly that same group or family that we've been seeing around. I think it was them. They weren't in the clearings though, above camp. They were elsewhere, a little bit further east. It's nice, and it's a great idea to stop and listen. Stop and listen for any signs of predator activity, any alarm calls, lions roaring, leopards roaring. Megan says that looks quite ominous. It does indeed, Megan. But it's lovely. I love it. I really, really do. It just looks wonderful. Alright, now, speaking of the dawn chorus, James has a bird that might be adding to that chorus.
It was adding a clarinet. That is the golden-tailed woodpecker, everybody. You can see it has a golden tail, but of course so do all woodpeckers. But I've just heard it call, and it went very much the same as a clarinet that has been blown by a small child. I, of course, taught music in a fairly large music department, so I know what a small child blowing on a clarinet sounds like. Yes, that's definitely him. The golden-tailed woodpecker. I'll just play you the call quickly while we're waiting for him to see if he'd like to do it again. That's the male. He weighs a paltry 70 grams, if you can believe it. You hear that? I'll give it to you again. There we go. That's his call. I think I may have frightened him off there. Did you see the way he flew? He flew in that very characteristic dipping motion. And there's a bearded woodpecker, and it's exactly the same place. Just look, watch this. That's a female. And they're also territorial like the males. See how the very, very stiff tail feathers are used to brace. Oh, come on, give us another drum beat. They find a hollow log like this specifically because it resonates. It gives a huge resonation across the landscape, especially this time of the day. And you can see how much huger and heavier the bill of the bearded woodpecker is in comparison there with the golden-tailed version. Come on. Don't let us down. Do it again. You've got a beautiful drum there. There's some baboons there. It's not leopards. Ah, now, Gail, apparently this is number 150 on your list. That's fantastic. You can hear the baboons shouting at each other. It's just because they're waking up. They're having fights with each other. There, that's going to go again. Here we go. So she did that in response to another one. That's how I knew she was going to do it. There's another one. There she goes again. And I'm sure each individual bearded woodpecker has probably got a unique bashing. Dina, you say, does the female also do the territorial bashing? Yes, apparently so. That is a female. She is bashing territorially. So yes, she does. And I've got to tell you, until I saw a female doing it live the other day, I was in the final control, and I forget who had it. I think it was Taylor or Jamie. And that's it was a female for the first time. I hadn't seen that before, so I would have said no. I thought it would probably largely be the males, but clearly it's the females as well. Isn't that cool? The baboons are having a real box with each other now. Okay, let's move along. So just as I was saying, if you see a bird flying past with that very characteristic sort of dipping flight, and it isn't obviously a hornbill because they do the same thing, it's often a woodpecker. It's quite a nice way of identifying them as they fly past you at high speed. I'm just going to try and make sure whether or not these baboons are alarm calling or fighting, and while we do that, Byron apparently is feeling a little myopic.
I'm trying to find a black-headed oriole for you. I can hear it calling. Listen, you might hear it. That's a crested barbet calling to our left. And then there's the black-headed oriole calling, but in the distance. Just can't find him. I'm scanning with my binoculars, but I cannot find the oriole. That very distinct call, that oh, the beautiful sounds at the moment. There are a lot of birds. So the black-headed oriole calling, the crested barbet was calling to our left, and I think I see the crested barbet. No, I don't. I do. I see the crested barbet. Let's see if I can get a view of him for you. And then there was a grey-headed bushshrike calling. So wonderful sounds at the moment in the bush. Now the crested barbet is sitting on this dead tree in front of us. I'm hoping about midway up. We'll see if we can get a view of him. Wait, don't fly. Let's have a look from here first. Let's see if we can get it for you. And right, there he goes. Oh. Typical. Just as soon as we wanted to show you the crested barbet, it flew off. But is there another one up there? No. I really enjoy this. We used to do this quite often. We used to drive around and we would listen to all the bird sounds and try and identify them. And we would often sit, a group of us on a vehicle with James. James was there, and we would then listen out and for a minute and see how many birds we could identify and write them all down while we were listening to them, and then compare notes. And it was amazing to see how many birds we all heard amongst the group of us and how many different birds people heard. And once it was pointed out to you, you'd be like, oh yes, that's right, you can hear that. And James used to make them up because he was never good at bird calls. I'm only joking. Don't tell him that, he might get a little upset this morning. We don't want that now, do we? I offered my thermos to James this morning, but he declined. He didn't want it. So instead, Fergus and I will be having some warm coffee a little bit later. Hot coffee, not warm coffee. Hot coffee. There's some elephant tracks around here. Not particularly fresh. No. Excuse me, so sorry. I apologize. Just, some elephant tracks. Oh, this is quite interesting. Let me show you. William, you asked, are the birds the first to wake up in the morning? Well, and let me just jump off here. So William, I think so. I think to an extent the birds are the ones who often wake up first and start their morning calls. A lot of the predators would have been moving around during the evening, and then you've got nocturnal animals that might still be moving around early in the morning. But I think in terms of the first sounds that you start hearing, it's mostly the birds, definitely. And then the other animals will still be around, but I suppose they always say that the birds are the first to wake up. Now, I just wanted to show you an interesting track here. You see this line in the sand that's been dragged through here. Now, that is from this elephant. The elephant tracks I can see. And what it is, he's got his trunk out, and as he's walked, he's just dragged his trunk along the ground, possibly tried to pick up some sand, maybe thrown it over his body. And here is actually a very clear track. And this is from this morning sometime. A big bull elephant, and why I say it's a bull, it's a really, really large track, and he's by himself. I don't see any other tracks of elephant around here. So this is his track right here, and he's heading in that direction though. So I don't think we'll see him. Maybe later. We'll head back there. It almost looks like he's got something stuck under his foot though. Now the elephants do have very clear marks under their pad, and you can see the wrinkles under the pad, but he's got a clear little round circle under the pad, and it's clear in every track. So I wonder if he hasn't got something stuck under there. Perhaps could be a piece of bark or something. Perhaps, I'm not sure. I've never seen one so prominent on an elephant track before. So that's a clear, or something that's quite distinct in this particular track. It definitely stands out. Alright, well, let's carry on. Alright, now we've got some help at the moment with Young Eyes McCurdy. She's going to be walking. I wonder if she's going to try and look for those leopards too.
We are indeed going to be looking for those leopards. We've just arrived down at WildEarthTV Dam. Good morning, everybody. Of course, my name is Tayla. On camera with me today is Senzo, and of course, we've got Herbie keeping an extra pair of eyes and ears out for us. So, Very exciting, of course. No, exciting is a horrific word to, of course, choose. I wouldn't say exciting, but I agree with James. He said this morning that it feels like his heart is sitting in his throat. I have that feeling too. And of course, that's just because Tingana is much larger than Hosana. And even if he just wanted to give him a fright, it could still end up him, unfortunately getting injured. But of course, let's not suspect the worst just yet. Let's try and figure out exactly what's going on. Bless you, Herbie. Herbie just did a big sneeze. Now, we've already picked up on Tingana's tracks walking through here. And now what we want to do is this is coming away from the dam and going between the lodge back up towards the DRC. So here we go. Here is the crime scene. There's a lot of commotion going on over here. Now, if you listened to... I'm just trying to put this all together in my head, of course. If you listened to that audio clip of the leopards fighting, you would notice that you can hear sand sort of being pushed about, sort of something like this. And that's because one of the leopards was running away, and I can only assume it was Hosana putting foot, and maybe Tingana was in hot pursuit. Now, the tracks that we have of Tingana going up there are not of him running, it's of him walking. So I don't think anything too serious would have happened. I think they had an altercation, and I think Hosana went one way, and I think Tingana realized there's no point in me chasing after him. He knows what he's done, he's learned his lesson, and he's continued with his morning, because it's a very sort of slow pace moving away from the dam. He's not registering, so he's not moving too quickly. His back feet aren't coming over the top of his front feet. But let's quickly see if we can find a clear track. Just if you come and have a look around here, they're not very fine tracks, but like something like this over here. This is from a leopard running. Now I've just moved it with that stick, but this is not a complete track. This is the leopard stepping into the ground and, of course, running away. Here's some of the toes, but you can see it's not very clear. So most likely, if you follow my hand, would have twisted like that in the sand and then pushed off, creating a very, very distorted track. And because the sand is, of course, very, very fine, very soft, sometimes it doesn't show the tracks very nicely. This is all our footprints moving around over here. But it's not all doom and gloom this morning. Hopefully, it's going to end up in a good result. But, of course, it's World Dawn Chorus Day. And well, the chorus is just getting started, but what I do want to show you is just one very, very pretty look over the dam this morning. And I'm sure if you have been watching the dam cam, you would have seen how beautiful it is, with the insects just causing lots of little ripples on the surface of the water, and then of course that beautiful orange haze coming from the distance. But I'm going to stand quietly, not sure how much you're going to hear, but let's give it a bash. So it's very difficult for you to hear, but I'm also having a little listen. Definitely no change, I think, in the types of birds that are calling just yet. I was listening to James as he was saying you could hear the turtle doves. They're definitely out and about. There's a couple of francolins sort of squawking in the distance. A few of the smaller birds. Haven't heard any of the robins just yet. Their calls are very easy to identify by their sort of beautiful fluty tune. Nothing just yet, but they might still arrive. But how great is this? Now, our next move from here, of course, is to go right down into the front of the dam and have a look and see if we can see anything that's happened around here. I'll also check in the sand, because I don't quite know where Hosana was, trying to figure out where exactly the dam cam was positioned, because at one point there was also a screenshot that was sent through of just a leopard. Actually, it was when the leopard was soaring at about 2 o'clock in the morning. There was young Hosana just sort of sitting quite still, sort of staring off into the distance. But let's see if we can figure out what's going on. See, none of these leopard tracks here are very, very clear just yet. Now, Linda, you're wondering if there's a reason why we should be so concerned about Hosana. Yes, in a way there is, because we don't know what's happened to Karula. We can't answer any questions. We haven't found a carcass. We haven't seen evidence of her, and it's a very hard thing to talk about just because we don't have any answers, and it's the worst thing because it's killing us all inside. She could just make a return. Maybe she's moved out somewhere else, but the chances of a female leopard that's been in a particular area doing something like that is not very likely. So what's happened, and why I think it's important that we are concerned about Shongile and Hosana, is because they haven't really had enough parenting time. Karula has left them, not intentionally, or maybe intentionally. We can't say. She's left them at a young age. They're doing a very good job at catching smaller things, every now and then taking down a big antelope here and there, which is great. That's really good to see. But I don't think that they've learned a lot of valuable lessons in life, and this is a classic case. Hosana has had interactions with Tingana, who was an impala that was snorting at me, but I don't know where the impala is now. Sorry about that. Of course, we're not jumpy in the bush, but just very cautious. So firstly, Tingana, obviously, as he's getting older, and if Hosana is starting to mark, and we have seen him starting to mark his territory, I don't think he realizes that he's doing anything wrong just yet. But he's going to have more and more aggressive interactions with Tingana, and basically Tingana is going to say, you're not welcome here anymore, and he's going to have to move out further and further away. So that's what I was saying the other day. If he wants to stay here, he's got to be very quiet about it. He can't be marking territories. I don't think he's rasping and soaring just yet. I think he's a little bit too young. That might come in a couple of months, maybe even a few years' time, whether he's bold enough to let his voice be heard. Very dangerous, of course, in an area like this when you've got so many big male leopards that would take any opportunity to chase a youngster out. So he might have to move out. And like I said, it's going to be very positive interactions every now and then. You might see Tingana sharing kills with Hosana. Not necessarily sharing. Of course, Tingana will come in and completely dominate over carcass. Sometimes they'll be a bit more tolerant, because you might find Hosana is not going to react negatively towards Tingana. He'll just sort of leave him and hide in the corner. You see this actually quite often with hyenas, even sharing kills with leopards. And I've seen it before where young male leopards have been on kills with big male leopards. And it's not because they want to share. It's just the little ones don't want to give up their kill, of course, so they wait quietly in the corner, don't say a word, don't fight back, and then that way, by being submissive, there's no point for that bigger male leopard to act aggressively. They don't want to have unnecessary conflict, because it could mean that the big male leopard could also get hurt. And of course, we don't want that, and he doesn't want that. And well, I'm pretty sure Hosana doesn't want to have an altercation with a massive male leopard. But we're going to do a little bit of investigation around here. I'm going to be checking all these spots just to see if we can find what's actually going on. I can see James driving around. He's not too far. He's also looking. Let's jump on board with him.
We are driving around. We have just seen Taylor, of course. And we've basically come back to exactly where I first saw you to start with. No, I haven't. Well, sort of. Herbert has gone across the dam wall, and I think he's got a better chance on foot there. So what we'll do is just continue down the road here, parallel with the great Umloamati drainage, well, the tributary thereof, and we'll see if we can't pick up some tracks this way. I can see Tingana's tracks coming up the way, so obviously from early last night. So I'm not sure what happened. We saw one impala since I last saw you. Otherwise, things have been fairly quiet here on the central front. Where these little leopards and big leopards have gone, I don't know. Anyway, we'll see what happens during the course of the morning. I find it a bit strange that, of course, that it's World Dawn Chorus Day. I'm not sure that we should have a World Dawn Chorus Day. I think we should have a Southern Hemisphere Dawn Chorus Day and a Northern Hemisphere Dawn Chorus Day, and that they should be at the height of the respective summers of those two places. Because how can you have a World Dawn Chorus Day in this area if there is no woodland kingfisher? How is that possible? How can you have a World Dawn Chorus Day in this part of the world with none of the cuckoos singing to you in the morning? How is that possible? It is not. Therefore, I am going to cancel World Dawn Chorus Day for the Southern Hemisphere, and henceforth this day will be known as Northern Hemisphere Dawn Chorus Day. I'm sure you all agree with me. I'm sure there isn't a person in the world who doesn't agree with me. James, I'm afraid I missed your question because the Game Drive radio exploded to life with the pointlessness. Please can I have it again? It's quite a nice... Oh, there was. Oh, there was a nice hornbill there, but it is absconded. James, you want to know out of the territorial bird species here, there's one there. And you see, the starling. James, I would say probably you'll find that martial eagles have got the largest territories of the birds in this area. And if I remember correctly, a martial eagle's territory is about 150 square kilometers, which is about 15,000 hectares, which is about 40,000 acres or so per martial eagle pair. So I think they have probably got the largest territories. There are many raptors, of course, who cover much greater distances, but they're not territorial. The vultures, for example, will cover distances all the way from here, I suspect sometimes into Mozambique, all the way back to the mountains of the Drakensberg. So they'll cover hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, during their lifetime, but they are not territorial. I would say the martial eagle probably. And of course, who would want to be in a martial eagle's territory if they knew that the martial eagle didn't want them there? They're the most intimidating looking creatures. They look very severe and very angry all the time. A little bit like me, I suppose, to the people in camp. Craig is grinning at the back. Right, I believe Byron is now looking at the sunrise, which is strange because I think the sun came up some time ago. So please ask him if he has morphed himself into dimension.
I've not morphed myself into anything. Is that what you said, James? Dear. What? I'm not sure what James is speaking about. I didn't hear properly, but the sun did come up a while ago. Now we are still searching for morphed myself into another time dimension. Right, James, did you have your cup of coffee this morning? And if you did, what was in it? No, I'm still having a look around, trying to see if I can find some elephant. There's been signs of elephant, and I'm listening to hear if we can't hear perhaps some branches breaking, perhaps. But I'm also just checking very carefully to see if we don't see any signs of the leopards maybe moving in this direction, in this area. But I don't know, I've got a feeling they're still around that camp area, the dongas, perhaps the thick drainage lines. I still think they're down there. I wonder. Maybe Tayla and Herbert has some luck. I think they are walking into that area. I'm not sure. But I think they were possibly going to go and have a look around. Just because it's nice to, when you hear all those sounds in the evenings, to try and find what caused the sounds the next morning, and then hopefully see what happened and piece the puzzle together. I think we're going to find something interesting this morning. Dino, you say you heard male leopard calling, or you think it was Tingana. You said moving around Twin Dams, between Twin Dams Road and the drainage lines. Yeah, so I think, well, that's probably where they're going to be checking. So I wonder, I didn't hear if James saw the remains of the carcass up in the tree, if there was anything left there. I wonder, I doubt it. I'm sure it would have probably been pulled down or finished by now. Just listening. It sounded like someone spotted a herd of elephant. I'll try to get an update. I'm not sure. I think it might be in that area that James is in. It's a lovely morning, and because it is still very, very cool, I do think we should see some predator activity. However, what happens often is these predators move around. They'll move through parts of the evening, and I think we see very little of what they actually get up to. So, like this leopard example or this leopard story is a great example. Leopards clearly got into an altercation. There was a lot of activity. They're moving around during the course of the evening, early hours of the morning. Now they're probably lying down resting for a bit, or they're going to then start moving again a little bit later as it starts warming up, and then looking for a spot to rest for the day. That's often what leopards do, and lions. What bird is that, Fergs? Did you? It didn't look. It looked like a barbet was there. There's a barbet up at the top there, but they looked like something else. There's a crested barbet, and we heard it calling this morning. We were looking for it. Here we go. The beautiful crested barbet. Folks, we've got I don't know if you can see it, but if you see this dead tree, if you're down that bush behind it, there's a grey-headed bushshrike sitting in there. He's just jumping around. It's just we never get to see those on camera. Let me reverse a little bit. Can you see him there? I think it's a little bit lower. Hold on. There he is. He's straight through there. A little bit lower down, straight through there, in the center of the screen. You should see him. There we go. A grey-headed bush shrike. Awesome, because we very seldom get them on camera. They're quite shy birds. Well, I haven't had a lot of luck with a grey-headed bush shrike, or getting it on camera before. You hear them calling, and then it darts off. You see, typical behavior of the bush shrike. They dart off into the scrub, into the thickets, and they hide. They fly off, take off quite quickly. Now, I'd like to show you a photo of it, because the bush shrike, grey-headed bush shrike, it does, that looked like a young one. Not quite adult plumage just yet. It didn't have, again, unfortunately my app doesn't, like I said, it doesn't turn the picture, can't make it bigger. But that's the view that we had of that grey-headed bush shrike. Straight in, there we go. Beautiful view of it. I'm just going to show you, that's the coloration of an adult. You see, it's got almost like a orange breast, slight bit of orange tinge to that yellow breast, but you can see that was definitely a younger one that we saw. It wasn't as colorful as this adult, but you could see that clear line with that grey head, that very sharp thick beak. Beautiful bird. I'm so glad we got to see that. That's a nice little bird to add to your list. If there's a crested barbet is calling for us at the moment above us. Now those little grey-headed bush shrikes, interesting thing is they'll be looking around for insects, but also little reptiles, lizards, even chameleons. If that little grey-headed bush shrike found some chameleons on the tree, it would definitely try and hunt them and feed on them. So quite a powerful little bird. Ah, Kirk, that was number 50 for you on your bird list. Wonderful, that's great. That's a nice one to have, because you hear them often, and a lot of us will say, well, you can hear the grey-headed bush shrike calling, but to see them, as I said, it's not always easy. two little parrots that just flew off. Oh dear, the brown-headed parrots. Alright, well, Tayla seems to be mesmerized by the sun this morning. Let's see what her plan is.
It's hard not to be mesmerized by the beautiful sun on a chilly morning like it is today. Now, we're, of course, still walking around, and we haven't quite worked out what is going on just yet. We've just heard some birds and some squirrels alarming just down into this drainage line, so you're going to have to come with us now. We're going to keep moving, because when an animal alarm calls, it's not a monkey, which is good. So typically the squirrels will only alarm when an animal is quite close by, whereas the baboons and the vervet monkeys will tend to alarm at something that could be a couple of 100 meters away, because they've just got the most incredible eyesight. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to find a decent gap. The brush is very thick, as we've been chatting about for the last couple of months now, and with the return of the buffalo bulls, we need to be very, very careful. There are many pans around here. I don't think there's going to be any buffalo in the pans because it's a bit cold for them to be sitting in them, but it's always good just to be careful. So we've got a openish route here, which we're going to take. We've had Tingana's tracks, and we've obviously all been talking about him going up and down and around here. So I think Hosana's been a little bit naughty. Obviously he had that kill, so he needed to stay around here, but I think he held on for a little bit too long. And I think with his movements around, he has to urinate, he has to defecate, and all those scents, of course, to a big male leopard will come through very, very easily, because Tingana wants to spot or pick up evidence as quickly as he can if there is an intruder. So we're just going to check through here. Herbie's jumped up ahead. We'll hang back just because I'm talking, and I don't want to disturb him at all while he is trying to listen very carefully. But this would be a very, very good hiding spot for a young male leopard, and it makes sense because Tingana was it looked like he was doing a couple of circles. I think he was just making sure that Hosana had now gone and wasn't going to try his luck again. But let's see, let's go through here very quickly. He could be up in one of these big jackalberry trees. We're just going to be a little bit quiet, just because it's very thick in here. The squirrels have stopped alarming, but there were a couple of birds, the go-away birds were going ballistic literally about 3 minutes ago. And there's a combination of a lot of tamboti thickets here, a lot of guarri thickets, big jackalberries, long grass. Like I said, this would be a perfect sort of hideaway spot for a young male leopard. And we haven't picked up any more tracks coming in and out here, but I know that you've all been talking about how you've been hearing Tingana making a lot of noise, and he will with something like this after an altercation. Even though it's another young male leopard, he'll make himself heard. He'll make sure, like I said, that Hosana does not make the same mistake again and get too comfortable in his territory. You can just have a look here. This is a big tamboti, but let's look at that one over there. That's the one I'm talking about, the big one where Herbert is. You can just see Herbert walking around it. That's the big jackalberry. Look how massive it is in comparison to Herbie. Well, the birds have settled down. They're now shouting at us. Now, vaping raisin, you're wondering if the fight was over the kill or the territory. Yesterday morning, I had a look around there. There was no kill. He finished that kill not last night, the night before. He'd eaten the last little bits of it. There were some remnants of a couple of little bones. So there was no fight about food, but the scent from the kill would most certainly still be there. So I'm sure Tingana would have gone to investigate. He probably felt a bit frustrated with himself that he didn't pick up on it sooner. The other thing that I've got to say is I'm wondering if Tingana's been on the property the entire time. If you remember, about 3 mornings ago, we had that very quick sighting of Tingana. He disappeared behind Guarri Pan and into the drainage system and make a kill along that drainage line. Lots of kudu around there, lots of duiker, lots of steenbok, lots of different types of antelope. He could have very easily killed something, fed on it for a day and a half, and then continued with his patrol, because his tracks initially come sort of from the east, coming towards Twin Dams and then back down towards the dam again, and then they go around towards WildEarthTV Lodge. They do a big loop, and he's just sort of was doing a couple of circles like this. So I think he's maybe just been here the whole time and we didn't know it, stuck in a drainage line where it's almost impossible for us to get. But we're all, of course, all three of us this morning are on the search for either Tingana or Hosana, and hopefully one of us will find him. We're going to keep searching. Byron is too. Let's go get an update from him.
I'm looking, Tayla, I'm looking. I'm searching for everything, anything that moves. Now, I'm driving along the edge of a drainage line, and this is usually a lovely area to look for anything, really. We could have potential predators, we could have elephant feeding, we could have various antelope species like kudu and inyala. So it's a great spot. Now, I'm just thinking that we are going to find a leopard lying on a termite mound somewhere, or on the bank of this drainage line in the sun, just warming up, because it is quite cool this morning. And I know they do like to do that from time to time. I haven't seen any tracks yet, so that doesn't help us. It was not in our favor. Obviously, we get tracks at least, then it's a good sign that there might be a predator around or any animals around. No tracks of any leopard or lion yet. The grass is still very long too, so it's not that easy. I mean, the other day, a buffalo was basically hiding from us in the long grass. Ferguson, I just saw the head move a little bit, and that's the only way we saw the buffalo. So just to give you an idea of how long the grass is at the moment. That's lovely. I love driving along these beautiful little drainage lines, and there's a lot of elephant tracks up ahead here. Let's have a look at them. You can just see all that. There we go, some fresh. So there's some fresh, look like fresh elephant tracks. We'll have a look around here and see if I wonder, maybe I can hear them if they're close by. William, you asked how many miles a day do we drive? So William, this area, you know, it can vary and range from about I think back to guiding permanently in these areas. I would some days do a safari where we drive maybe 2-3 kilometers in an afternoon, and that's it, because there's so much happening. Other days you could drive between 10 and 15 kilometers, so anywhere between 2 miles and up to 15 miles maybe. In this part of South Africa, in these game reserves, you don't necessarily have to drive very far. Also depends on the size of your property and the traversing that you have. So I think we probably average around, let me think, I would say a day, probably about 30 kilometers a day average, I think. What do you think, Fergs?
Yeah, maybe about that.
Maybe about that. Maybe more on some days. So what's that, about 18 miles, is it? Somewhere around there?
It depends. No animals.
Yeah, 15 to 18 miles. Roughly, I would say, is an average. I wonder what James thinks about that. We'll ask him later. Now, we are not going to go and see James or Taylor. We're going to go see Brent all the way in the Mara.
Habari asubuhi, which means good morning in Swahili, and welcome to the Mara Triangle. My name is Brent. I have the talented Eggsy on camera, and he's shaking his head because I'm in such a good mood like I am most mornings. But I am continuing our love affair with probably going to be our new favorite pride of lions, the Angama pride, and their 7 cubs, 4 adult females, and they are just over behind me. Where must I move? Go forward, okay. And awesomely enough, just off, as you can see them, and can we see them nicely? And there's a beautiful big elephant bull who's walking behind them as well. Now, from what we can see, these lions have obviously had a snack last night. They haven't moved very far at all from where we had them last night. They're probably about 500 meters, but there's such an incredible density of food species around here. Warthogs, topi, Thompson's gazelle, impala. Oh, I can't wait to show you an East African impala and its monster horns. But we came down quite early this morning, and it's a bit of a different day today than yesterday. Yesterday we had quite a lot of cloud cover, so it was quite cool. But today it's much more open, so it's still a very pleasant temperature, but still quite chilly. But it looks like they've managed to feed overnight, so they're probably going to rest amongst those trees for the rest of the day. Now, we have found that this pride up in the tree, as we did yesterday, so who knows, as it gets warmer today, they might decide to start climbing to get away from all the biting flies. Well, a wonderful habari asubuhi, Shelley. Shelley would like to know, can you get as close to the animals here in the Mara as you can in Djuma? Yes, you can. Shelley, the reason we're not driving closer to those lions at the moment is because there has been a lot of rain and there's some marshy areas between us and the lions, and we would have to probably spend the rest of the day trying to dig ourselves out of the mud. But yes, if they are closer to the road in an area that's not saturated with water, we can definitely get a lot closer to them, and they are as relaxed with the vehicles as the animals are in the Sabi Sands. It is absolutely gorgeous here this morning. Watch my head. Sorry. And remember, hashtag Safari Live if you've got any questions for me about the Masai Mara or the lions. And as I say, I'm getting to know the lions still, but I'm very lucky that we have one of Angama's best guides with us today, Douglas. So he's helping me out, giving me all the information that I might be lacking, and it is truly thrilling to be here. And I'm quite sure we're going to be seeing these lions hunted sometime. I was chatting to Douglas a bit earlier, and he says, wait for July when the wildebeest arrive, and there is murder and mayhem going on everywhere. Now, in certain parts of the Masai Mara and Serengeti ecosystem, the lions can actually really struggle for food when the migration's not there. But one of the most incredible things about the area we operating in the Mara Triangle is that the resident animal species here are here all year round, and there's a lot of them, as you saw yesterday. So these are the lucky lions. They are well fed for most of the year, and then they are absolutely obese during the migration. Oh, and can you see that other lioness there, Eggs? Over there. Hi, Jeffrey in Texas. Jeffrey would like to know, do these lions actually rest in the tree? Yes, they do, Jeffrey. Actually, last night when we were with them, there was an adult and I think about 3 cubs actually sleeping in a shepherd's tree. And it is not uncommon in this part of Africa for lions to sleep in the tree, and that's due to the amount of biting flies. So if they get a little bit of elevation, there's a bit more breeze, and it keeps the flies from biting on their ears and other soft parts. Oh, that is a nice elephant bull coming through there. You see him, Xander? Is he behind the pole? He's moving towards the pole. He's behind the pole. Oh, we'll wait for him to move out. Well, a good morning to Mindwarp, and Mindwarp, you're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to have to get some help from Xander here, because okay, Xander, you see down where Serena is, those three, so if we point the camera there, so Scarface Mindwarp, his territory is down there probably about 7 or 8 kilometers from here. And he hasn't been seen for a while, I've heard. Yeah. So he is a very old lion. Doug is just saying, so he hasn't been seen for a while. But maybe we'll take a meander down there this morning and see what's happening. But yeah, I know he hasn't been seen by any of the guides I've spoken to for a while. So who knows? Now this area has 4 males. I've only seen one of them so far. That dominate over this area from here through to the edge of the triangle and beyond. And the most incredible thing here is, though we're in the reserve now, there's almost no difference between in the reserve and out the reserve. The animals move freely. There's no fences. So I think we're going to leave the Ngama Pride while they snooze, because I think they probably ate a warthog or something last night. And we're going to move down towards the Mara River and see what other adventures await. Isn't this so exciting? Remember, #Safari Live if you got any questions for us. And, well, it sounds like we're going to go across to something very fun. And that's Tayla and Bushwalk. And I'm going to ask Tayla to show us how to use a rubbing post.
Brent, it's so great to hear from you again. We're definitely missing you at camp. And, well, yes, I'm going to demonstrate to all of you how to use a rubbing post. But before we even get there, what I absolutely love, and we've been seeing a lot of them lately, is, of course, the elephants. And the elephants out here, unfortunately, they can cause the most destruction of anything. And, well, if you consider pushing a couple of trees down, destruction, well, then there we go. But, of course, you need a big, strong tree when you're an elephant. And yesterday we were watching the elephants have a nice mud bath. There are plenty of mud wallows in this little drainage system. So on a nice hot afternoon, of course, they come down and cover themselves. And then what do they do next? They will, of course, rub all over here. But now, I don't know if this was rubbed so recently. It doesn't look particularly fresh, and I can say, well, I can sort of come to the conclusion by many different ways. Firstly, watch the mud as I touch it. So it just sort of falls off. It's very brittle, so it's dried. It's been baking in the sun. So this has not happened in the last week or so. And then another way is you can obviously see these big indentations on the marula tree exposing the red cambium layer underneath. And that's because this is from I would say an elephant bull was here. And I think he was scoring the bark. I think maybe he had a little taste of it. You can see there's little bits that have been removed. Here's actually an old score. So this tree is often scored quite regularly, though I don't know why they'd be eating bark just yet. It looks like it was maybe even just having a scratch, and then because the tusks can cause a bit of damage when you've got 4 or 5 tons behind that sort of pushing power, you can easily lift the bark up. But the reason why I say that it was an elephant bull is if you follow this tree right up, you can see how sort of high these markings get, and I don't think that an elephant cow would be able to do this. I think this was a big bull. He probably put his trunk up against the tree or somehow while he was having a little scratch or something along those lines. And then, of course, the best way to use a tree, and if I was an animal, I think I'd only rub up on marula trees. I'd be very specific. And that's because of all this lovely fissured bark. So, of course, nice scratch like that. You can do your bottom as well. You can do that one. What else could you do? You could hug the tree, like Steph loves to hug the trees. You could rub your face on it. And it's just really, really so nice to have this texture touching up against your skin, especially if you've got hard leathery skin. This would feel very nice to you and I. Might be a little bit on the sensitive side, but that's not all that I wanted to show you about this tree. Of course, it is utilized by all the elephants as a rubbing post and a scoring post, but if you look very carefully down here, you'll notice that it is indeed a female marula tree, because there's loads and loads of nuts all scattered around the ground. But there are no more actual nuts inside here. If you look in my hand, you can see that the squirrels have done a really good job at taking them all out and eating them. So good for them. They've been hard, and that's what squirrels spend most of their day doing at the moment. Well, as of course they would be stashing a couple of nuts and things away so that they can use them. Now, before James' bird flies away, let's go take a look at a batelier.
There we have the batelier, everybody. Its name is Byron the batelier, and it's called Byron the batelier because Byron was with it yesterday, and there he is now. Can you see he looks exactly like a batelier? I'm going to be ill. Let's go back and look at the batelier, please. Now, Byron and I are both going to follow up in this area on some female leopard tracks, which is quite interesting. We're on Leadwood Road. This is either Shongile, or dare I put the thought in your minds that it could be her mother? I don't know. They look a little bit big to be Shongiles to me, but I might be wrong. I haven't seen Shongile for a little while. So we will both do a loop around here and see if we can't come up with something that maybe will turn into Shongalai. In the meantime, a very nice batelier sighting, and I think it's the same bird that Byron showed us yesterday afternoon. I don't think it's moved. They are very beautiful birds, these, and so you should look at them often. Have you had enough of this bird, have you, Craig? Oh, okay. No, we'll carry on then. I was quite enjoying that. Oh, well, I think that this leopard walked off down towards that area there. So Byron's going to do a loop around that side. We'll go back down this way. I didn't find where Tingana's tracks came out. So, he also could be around here. His tracks came all the way down Twin Dams Road. So I know, Dina, you were talking about him going up and down and around the Djuma Dam. He obviously turned sometime late last night and came back down this way. It may have been very early this morning as well. And we lost him around about Chelapan area, which is sort of, say 2/3 of the way down towards the southern boundary, in case you were wondering where all these strange places are that we're talking about. You can actually find, if you just go Google Djuma on Google Maps, you will find, well, you won't have the pans and that sort of thing aren't labelled there. Most of the roads are labelled, and so you can, when we talk about the roads, you can actually follow exactly where we are. And I imagine one day we will be able to feed you our GPS readings from the cars, which will be quite fun. Then you'll be able to see exactly where we are. So we'll just bumble gently down here and see if we don't get lucky with the tracks. And I must say also we had a beautiful sighting of an orange-breasted bushshrike. Unfortunately for us, however, you were looking at lions hanging in a tree, which was inescapably more entertaining. Anyway, it was a nice small highlight for us for the day. Now, I believe that we are now going to go across to what has been described my partner in crime. If Byron was my partner in crime, I feel very sure that we'd have been arrested some time ago.
We probably would have, James. We probably would have. This is great that James has found some female leopard tracks. I didn't see them though, but I'm going to help James and we're going to check this area very, very carefully. Now there is a bit of a thick block between us and where James is. So James is off in that direction, just off to my left. He's down there, but as you can see, I'll just try to show you here quickly. There's quite a thick little section. Now, all we need to do now is try to rely on our tracking skills and then hopefully also the sounds of the bush. Hopefully we get the odd alarm call or something that can alert us as to where this leopard might be. But this is exciting. Just listening for a minute or two before I move on again. So we will try our best to see if we can find this elusive leopard which has walked through this area. We'll see, and it does help when there are two of you in an area, because then you can check roads, and if one hears something, you can tell the other person, and you should be able to find the animal, hopefully. I just want to check every now and then, check the roads very carefully to see if there are any tracks coming out. But again, it is difficult while we are driving, because I might be able to see on the right hand side of the road, but I can't see on the left hand side of the road, so I need to check very carefully, and often I'll just pull off to the side and have a good look to see if we can see any tracks. Did see some sign of elephant too again, and Fergus and I were joking and said we feel like a CSI team. There's clues and evidence of elephant, but we can't find them. So we've got Horatio and Mac on the vehicle looking for the animals that left this evidence. Now Brent is still driving around in the Mara. I wonder what wonders he has to show us.
Okay, so here we are. Welcome back to the Masai Mara, or should I say Karibu Sana, which is a very big welcome to everyone. And we're just having a little bumble now. We've left the lions. They seem to be very, very flat. So we're heading down towards a big swamp that is called Samaki, which basically means fish in Swahili. And I think it's a bit early for the elephants, but maybe a little bit later when we go there. I think there must have been a good 100 or so elephants spread out through that swamp as it gets a bit warmer during the day. So we're going to do a little drive down past Samaki and see what's there. So what we're finding now at the moment, at this time of the year, there's sort of two big congregations of general game. So you've got the congregations around the river and the seasonal swamps that are quite full at the moment. And down there we're finding sort of Thompson's gazelles, topi, buffalo, ellies, impala. And then right up against the escarpment, the Ololo escarpment, which is where we live on top of, there's masses of zebra and Coke's hartebeest and eland, and it's going to be amazing. So as the season changes, as it dries out, a lot of those animals are going to move down from the escarpment onto this grass. Now, I know a lot of you have heard a lot of us go on about red grass and how good it is for grazing. Now the amazing thing is that so I was chatting to Douglas and I was like, oh, this what is it? Red oat grass. Yeah. Red oat grass. Is it a Themida? Is it the same? It's like, yeah, it's Themida triandra. So it's the same grass, that really high quality. Oh, I got to go down. There's some bumps. That really high quality grazing grass. I'll grab some for you now. That we find in the Sabi Sands, but only really in patches, sort of down on Cheetah plains. But literally here is a sea of Themida triandra. So let me just grab a piece for you now. Here we go. Now, it is possibly one of the most dominant grass species that we're seeing in the Masai Mara. And of course, I'm only talking about it because it's probably the only grass species I know. I've got to learn all my grass still. But there we go. Themida triandra, Natal red grass in South Africa, but called red oat grass here in Kenya. And it is a very important thing. And the amount of it that's here is why we have this absolutely incredible amount of wildlife. And you know what? It tastes good as well. Okay, I'm going to chew my Themida while we head towards the Samaki swamp. I just can't help myself. I'm just absolutely blown away by the vistas we get here. I mean, look at that. A lone shepherd's tree. And behind the shepherd's tree, and you see the birds flying there, eggs. So if we zoom in, it's quite far away, but that's the Samaki swamp, and about 150 white storks, and lots of saddleball storks, and oh, what's that? I'm going to get my binoculars. No, there's lots of waterbuck. We're going to have to get closer to the waterbuck because they're different species to the ones we get in the Sabi Sand. We're all quite now, but it is incredible. So Rick's asking, is the Mara all open?
Right, everybody, of course we're walking, we're on the move at the moment. We are going very, very quickly, of course, and that's because I haven't got the greatest news in the sense that we've just picked up on Hosana's tracks, running with Tingana, almost said Tinkata, with Tingana's tracks in hot pursuit, which is not great. That's what we didn't want. I was hoping that that was going to be the end of it. He chased Hosana away. There was definitely, in that audio clip that we did here, there was definitely contact that had happened. A leopard will not make those sounds that we heard if he's just standing and watching a leopard in the distance. If you've ever seen two male leopards fighting before, even if you've ever seen mating leopards before, you'll know that those are the sounds of proper contact. So I think Hosana obviously got a bit of a smack and then went running off, and he went running straight down into the drainage line just behind WildEarthTV Dam, going straight east, and we've continuously been following their tracks. What we're trying to do now is it's getting a little bit thick in there, so we're trying to get back to the Twin Dams Road as quick as we can so we can go towards Chele Pan and go back down into the drainage line again and start from there. So we are moving as quick as we can, because the longer we hang around and wait, the further they could get away, and of course we want to try and find them and figure out exactly what is going on. It's impossible for James and them to get in here in the cars, so that's where we as Bushwalk team are very important, but we need to work as quickly and as efficiently as we can. So if that means us going back around onto the road so that we can walk where it's a little bit more open, so we can move quicker, that's what we need to do. But we've got a general idea, of course, of which direction the tracks are going. Let's just bob and weave through here. Watch your head here. Over the tracks we go. I am holding a couple of things in my hand I'm collecting along the way, but we'll chat about them a little bit later. Let's see. Now, Herbie is on a mission this morning. He also wants to try and find out what on earth is going on with these leopards. Tingana's obviously very upset. He doesn't seem to be too happy at all at the moment, and I don't blame him. Firstly, he's had to send quarantine and give him a hiding and send him home and say, you stay there, you're not allowed here. Then we've had Mvula sneaking in constantly in his territory. That would have upset him too. And now, of course, Hosana's hanging around. He's not liking that. I think he feels as though he's being everyone's abusing their privileges, if that makes sense. He's sort of saying, okay, you can come through, but now you're making kills in my territory, you're marking in my territory, and you're doing all of those things. Actually, I'm not going to stand for it anymore. And Saki's gone on a bit of a rampage, which I don't blame him, because Tingana has put in all the hard work to try and claim this territory for himself, and now he's got other leopards that think that they can just do what he wants. He's obviously been too kind before, and now he's setting the standard and saying, I'm not tolerating this anymore. He is getting older. So I think he's in the prime of his life though. I think he's going, if I don't show these boys now, I might lose my territory to a young upstart like Quarantine, for example. Hosana hasn't really got a chance, unfortunately. He's still too young. He needs a good 4 or 5 years of growing. And now, Molly, you were actually wondering exactly that, if Hosana is considered a threat to Tingana. No, not at all. So that's why I'm now starting to think that I don't actually even know what's going on. I'm really nervous to come across these leopards, and because I don't even know what to say to any of you. We can only speculate until we find the animals. It's the same thing with Karula. We can only speculate everything, but we don't have the evidence to prove this. But the fact that Tingana's tracks are very fresh, Hosana's tracks are very fresh, they're over the top of the dew, which means that they're from earlier this morning. We might not be too far behind them, but like I said, we've got to keep the pace going. Sorry, Senzo's walking backwards very quickly. Herbie's getting up around the corner. Also, the faster we move and the closer we get, if there's another altercation or a growl or a saw, we're going to hear it. We want to be able to hear it because that will pinpoint their location. So I'm almost shaking. The adrenaline is pumping in my body, and it's not the good kind of adrenaline as well. It's sort of more nervous. I don't know what to expect. Like I said, I really think Tingana's on a rampage, and he wants to prove a point, and I just hope that he hasn't hurt Hosana, because Hosana just doesn't know. He's been left at a young age to sort of take on the big bad world all by himself, and he's doing the best that he can. So let's hope that Hosana's youth and his stamina, with all the energy that he does have as a youngster, has helped him and enabled him to sort of sprint away. But we're going to keep marching and hopefully get back onto those tracks again and come back with some good news. But let's go back across to Byron and see how his search for the leopards is going.
Well, Taylor, no luck just yet. I'm in the Mulwati at the moment, and I just wanted to jump out and have a look around here, because this soft sand can give us a nice indication if anything's moved through here. So I've been looking around, haven't seen any sign. Now, those tracks that we had, or James had earlier, were in that direction and heading this way. So they were east of us and heading southwest. So that's why I thought if we come and check down in the drainage line, there's a good chance, good possibility that we would find sign of this leopard moving through here. I'm just having a look here. This is some lovely soft sand, so it should be, technically it should be fairly easy for us to spot some tracks, but it's not always that the case, because sometimes what happens is you get the pug marks from the leopards. They're not very clear. You might just get a little indentation in the soft sand, but you should be able to see if it is a leopard or not. But I'm just having a very careful look before we head out of here, because I don't want to miss anything. But it is difficult sometimes. I remember driving around and tracking with my friend Judas. We'd walk through sandy areas like this, and he would see a track and point it out, and sometimes I could never see what he actually saw. It was amazing, and I felt quite useless. But it's just a skill that he has learnt over time of how to identify the tracks and just what to look for. I don't see any sign here. Michael, I have no idea. I don't know which leopard would have been. You asked, could it be Shadow's tracks? I'm not sure. I don't know if Shadow has moved down into this area before. With Karula moved or wherever he is, whatever has happened to. Alright. So, as I say,
hello everybody, that was quite a sudden jump across here. I'm not sure what happened. Right, two things to tell you. First of all, these tracks are definitely on top of Byron's from yesterday. They are quite fresh, I think, but I failed to find them beyond the corner we've just gone round, and I did a long walk through there. That's the first thing to tell you. The second thing to tell you is to say that I had the most magic moment when I was walking down through there. The grass is quite wet. It's a bit like, let me try and find you a similar sort of area. Craig, if you can just put the camera up along these backlit grasses, that would be lovely. I was walking along a path like that. Look how pretty that is. And I looked up, and there was a duiker standing on the path in front of me, and I've never had an experience like this with the duiker. It just stood. and then I stopped, and we had a moment of about just 30 seconds where this beautiful backlit antelope, framed by those grasses that you're looking at now, stared back at me, the dew shining all around it. It was the most magic moment. And then he absconded off into the bushes, and I carried on looking for tracks that were invisible to my eyes. Anyway, that's what's happened there. And then Craig heard some impala alarm calling over here when I was off the car. It might be whatever made these tracks. Anyway, we'll just do a quick drive around here. We obviously will become quite frustrated if we spend the entire day driving around here trying to find who the owner of these tracks are. And I believe that there was a question about whether or not they could be Shadow's tracks, and the answer is almost certainly not. I mean, they could be, but it's almost certainly not, Shelley, and that's because we are well to the east of her territory. We are far east of her eastern boundary, so I think it would be highly, highly unlikely that Shadow would come anywhere near this area. There would be no reason for her to do that. Of course, we did chat yesterday about the possibility of the expanding leopard territories, but this is right on the border of Karula and Tandi's old territory, and so I think it's quite possible that it's Tandi. It could be Karula. It could be, most likely, I think, Shongile. But it means that there is a female leopard lurking around here. Now, I believe that Tayla is also hot on the trail of some leopards, and they were running where she is.
They were indeed. This is a very, very angry Tingana that we've got this morning, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Have a look at these tracks here. He's definitely moving exceptionally quickly. If you look very carefully at these footprints, now they don't look particularly big, but they are. I think it's just slightly distorted. I'll show you some bigger ones as we go up ahead. This is 2 tracks here. In this little circle that I'm going to draw with the grass are 2 footprints over the top of each other. You can see this is the fresher one over here. So this is the back foot that is stepped over and on top of and even further ahead of the actual front foot. And if you carry on, if you follow us, you can see them. Again, look at this. This is 2 tracks. They've just registered over the top of one another. Now that doesn't happen unless a leopard is moving very quickly. He may have been running at some point, and I think here he's basically doing a brisk walk. He is hot on the heels of, I can only imagine, Hosana. We haven't picked up his tracks again since here, so I wonder if he didn't stick and sort of ducked into the drainage line, trying to bob and weave, trying to put as much vegetation as possible between him. But like I said, Hosana is young, he's quick, he's nimble, he's got a lot of energy. Tingana is much larger, he's a little bit bulkier. It doesn't mean that he's slow though, but I think if anything, Hosana would have that sort of being smaller, being more slight, being able to duck through some of this vegetation and perhaps give Tingana the slip. That's what I'm hoping for. But he is cross, and I know it sounds silly that I'm saying that you can see his mood just from his tracks, but when have you ever seen a leopard march? Normally when we see them, oh yes, I'm marking my territory, oh yes, this is a great shrub to spray up against, having a lovely day. You know, they're never really on too much of a mission. This is how Tingana is walking. Are you ready, Senzo? I'm so sick of these young leopards coming into my territory and causing nonsense. That's literally the attitude that Tingana will have right now. He is fuming. And like I said, I don't blame him. But I thought it was really nice to see tracks like that. You don't often get to see those tracks. And here they are again. They are so fresh. Have a look down here. I cannot tell you, we can't be too far behind. Very little disturbance in the sand. Again, over the top of the dew, so little, not crusty, if that makes sense, but you can just see how there's quite a bit of definition here. So that's just breaking, so the dew would have of course fallen on the sand, on the grass, and that's him stepping in and just breaking that thin sort of wet layer. But let's go. At least we've got good tracks here. We lost them for a bit, but now that we've picked up on them again, that's good for us, because if we've got footprints to follow, that's just one step closer to finding the animals at the end of these tracks. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit tricky. as if this soil gets quite hard at this junction up here quite close to Chele Pan. There's quite a bit of gravel on the road, which will make it almost impossible for us to follow. So we've got to be careful. We've got the sun coming through quite nicely, illuminating the tracks. No need for a torch this morning. And now I can't see them anymore. Let me just check on this side of the road. Yeah.